Great having you here. It's going to be an exciting discussion. We have all the industry experts here, talking about various aspects of virtual events. And some of you have real experience of a live event, and when while we are pivoting to a virtual, what it means, what are the changes needed. I want to start with you, Aarti. My first question to you is that, in your industry, for example, which is purely dependent on live events, how much of value are virtual, for example, events having at the moment?
Hi, Rohel. Good to see you in Kashmir setting still, and an interesting panel here. Most of us are friends and lovely to be here. Rohel, yes, you're right that our industry, if I may say, one of the verticals that is into social celebrations is largely dependent on physical experience and interpersonal, interaction and so. But like even Roshan said, and some of your earlier panelists said, that we are constantly in a rapidly evolving sort of, field. Nothing ever, remains the same. If you look at any experience for that matter, whether it's shopping, traveling, booking a taxi, or any of these things, everything has changed in what we have witnessed in our lifetime. Similarly, there are influences even on the way people are connecting with each other, the way people are celebrating, in the way people are even conducting their weddings and other personal occasions. Yes, there is an influence. Right now, I take this as a small stopgap of having restrictions due to the pandemic that we are into. But futuristically and largely speaking, I think it's only going to be treated as a value addition and not as a substitute to what we are doing currently. I think the physicalness, the physicality of being with each other is never going to be replaced by virtual events, but it will only aid more and allow us to do more interesting things and add audiences and do interesting VR devices, to have certain things that will only make it more interesting. And that's, I think, what primarily our job is, to make things creatively led and to make them more interesting for the target audience. So that's my take on celebrations with virtual events.
Before I come to the event tech experts here, Java and Meghna, I want to quickly ask Sushma here, and Nanni, that, we have people joining and thousands of the data is here. Is there a feeling that where does it all go at the end of the event? What are the real value adds? Do event, heads think like that? The event agencies and marketeers think like that what happens to all of that? There were 10,000 people, but what came out of it? Is there that gap that the value is not being delivered as much as it seems to be out there?
Although thanks, Rohel, and hi everybody, good evening. So of course, throughout the conference, the whole day, we've only been hearing about a lot of this, but Rohel, you actually hit the nail on the head. It's so true. Because, when you do an event, a live event of 10,000 people, there's a different energy, there's a different feel. Even for us as event people, like, setting it up, right, to the pre-event buzz, to the event day, post-event. I mean, there's just like so much energy if you have 10,000 people. On a virtual event platform, fine. 1 week before, you put all the data, shove it all up onto the platform, create the designs, get them approved, put it all ready. On the day of the event, you log in 1 hour before, do the event, shut your laptop, and that's the end of the event. Where is the connect? You may have created the most fantastic event platform. Like, we end up creating all these experiences, which we'll talk about later. Personalization, network room, your personalized coffee kit comes to you, all that stuff there. But those 10,000 people, you haven't felt those people. So your question to us, like as event people, there is a big void in us. Because we ourselves I personally don't feel satisfied having done a 10,000 people event or a 50,000 people event, and I say, "Hua kya yaar? Laptop band kiya aur chale gaye. Now I'll go for a walk or go for my workout." It makes that connect is missing. But of course, at the end of the day, we see that the brands are happy because they've been able to get 10,000 plus people, because people who otherwise could not have come, they have joined, right? So they achieved their goals. I'll hand it over to Sushma.
Thank you, Nanni. So, I have a diverse point of view, especially when it comes to virtual events. We all know that data is the currency of the future. And the one platform that one can collate, compile, and actually create targeted experiences is a virtual platform. Now, I have seen, and it also depends on what event you're really planning, right? Especially when you're doing a branded event, so you're doing an event for a brand or doing an event for a product. This is one platform that I feel that you can actually specifically target the audience to actually come and experience the event. So I think, and then what happens to that data later? Let me come to the next part of this question, right? So once you've got that, this becomes actually a wonderful world for any brand, and I'm talking especially for corporate brands, to create future marketing experiences. It also provides them an opportunity to do tactical marketing, strategic marketing, as well as scatterbombing. Yeah. So you actually gives I think it's a mine of treasure that I think which will be the outcome of this post-COVID experience that any corporate house, branded house will have. Now that may not be the case for a personal event, which is a virtual event, because personal is more the target audience is your friends and family, etc. So I don't know whether that kind of data will really work, but I think in large scale corporate branded events, concerts, music concerts, etc. that is held, that data is going to be a treasure for the future.
Jaya, having being somebody from the platform side, tell me, are virtual platforms easier to personalize? I mean, is it easier to use them to get personalized messaging and very targeted audience reach out? Do you think they enable it?
Okay, so first thing that I want to say that even this entire virtual bubble that has been all risen up in the last one and a half year. But one thing that we are missing on is that at the end of the day, events industry and events per se, virtual is just a medium. Technology is an enabler. The game is bringing people together. Any event, virtually, physically, hybrid, the idea is to bring people together to engage them. And no event is a success without, like how Nanni ji just said, that that feel factor, be it virtually, be it physically. So it has to be there. So like how you're asking that, is virtual an easy platform? I think the most abused word of the last entire one and a half year is data only. That is also one big problem. Like, we have all the data. Great. We have the data that how many people joined in, how many people didn't come up, who dropped out in between, things like that. How Netflix asks you, right? Are you watching? So there are event and virtual platforms who can check that, hi, are you even listening to this webinar or not? So we have a lot of data. And that makes the job even more complex. Like how so many people say that, oh, digital marketing, like how so many people compare digital marketing with the traditional form of marketing, because everything is trackable, traceable, and you can count down to every last point that where your penny was spent. So similar is the thing with virtual, that there is just so much data. It doesn't make your job easy. At the end of the day, if we have these concepts like Zoom fatigue, this and that, these are all real things. So we should not miss on the part that events is all about people. It is all about engaging people together. Data is, of course, just a solid point for you to plan better, or maybe have a good strategy together, and maybe go back to your clients and bosses and make that pitch that, hi, you should spend on this better, and have a reasoning behind it. But trust me, even on virtual part also, having data doesn't work as a solution for building engagement or having a successful event. It is your idea. How do you utilize that data? How you build the insights out of it? And that is just the tip of the iceberg, because data, for data, what do we do about it is the real challenge that will be for the upcoming years.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Tech glitch. Meghana, do you agree with what Jaya has pointed out? Data, though you have data, but it's not always easy to use it. Also, when you talk about live events, because we have two set of people here. One, those who totally come from there, and the newer ones which have platforms. Do you think live, when you compare the live and the virtual events, do you think virtual events offer more scope for personalized experiences?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ruhail, and hello, everyone. I kind of agree, kind of don't, because this conversation is not about physical or virtual. It's about collaboration of both, because the experience you get when you walk into an event is definitely unexplainable. And the core idea of why events are conducted is mostly for knowledge, for connection, and for business. And in a virtual world, it is far more easier with AI, which plays a very big role in networking, in connecting people. In a physical event of 10,000 people, it is nearly impossible that I connect to 100 people whom I wanted to connect. Whereas in a virtual world where I know the list of people, where I know the tags, what they are looking for, it's much easier for matchmaking and for business opportunities to collaborate. It is a huge win and a way forward. Having said that, there is a whole concept of fun and that physical presence and face-to-face interaction that is missing. So the way forward, like most of our speakers have said, is definitely hybrid, where we have a combination of both. And when we consider the question of targeting and how to make virtual events more targeted and more personalized, I think virtual events have a huge potential of making it personalized. And we have to see all stakeholders. One is for the organizers, for the attendees, for sponsors, for exhibitors, and for speakers. So in any event, when we address all of these sectors, all of these stakeholders, like for example, for an organizer, it is not really easy to put up all the content, put up all the designs there and say, okay, my job is done. It's a lot more than that. It's about tracking live analytics. Like we are talking about, the devil is in the detail and how much of data are we really utilizing? So yes, today we are at the stage of collecting data, but down the lane, when data makes sense, when data becomes information, that is when we will have a lot of strides forward. So according to me, yeah, in a virtual world, it has its own advantages in terms of, networking and the ability to brand, like dynamic branding. In a session, it is easier for a brand to sponsor a session that is more relevant to them rather than put their name on all the sessions. So when we are talking about dynamic branding, every session, every track, every hall can be branded. That is a real impact. That creates a lot of visual recollection for people, and they relate to it better. You can't spend crores on site branding every session in a physical event. So it has its own strides, and I see a huge opportunity for that.
Aarti, in your case, for example, when we talk about the future is hybrid, is it only related to certain sectors? Would your sector relate to it, the wedding industry? Or is it very sectoral, as I call it? How do you see it? In your sector, for example, do you think any role of hybrid? What can hybrid do in your industry?
Totally, Ruhail. In fact, we are living it as we speak. Hybrid is the new hustler. Looking at everybody, added their own opinions, and we're talking about data and we're talking about limitations and diversities, pros and cons and everything. I think one thing that's the spine of our industry, and each and every event, wedding planner, be corporate, social, whatever, is that we are being valued mainly for the creative angle, for the way we are able to think, for the way we are able to do things differently than what the brand owners or the families would do themselves. I think that still stays the same. Now, when we change that thinking cap to a virtual medium or a physical medium, our thinking ability still has to be related in a way that where we are creatively led, we are led with innovation, we are led with something interesting and engage our audiences. That remains to be a common factor. In our sector also, yes, like I said, that when we had the pandemic challenges, we have had audiences logging in through the all kinds of virtual mediums, where we actually had Zoom integrated with other multiple platforms, people logged in from multiple countries and all of that. And everybody looked at it as a point of extension of safety, that everyone is safe in their homes and they could log in. But I'm coming back to this thing, yes, even in future, not just while we are held up by the pandemic, I see that even in future, if there were about 1,000 people who had to attend a particular celebration or an event or a show or whatever, I think there is scope for much more participation across time zones, across territorial zones, and participation in a different way. If not physical way, there are different ways and modes of participation, from things reaching out to them, from them doing things virtually, from them from the audiences doing things before and after the event, both. So it's just that we have to sort of wear a different thinking hat. We don't have to think in a physical way possibility and then add the virtual to it. And I think all of us here in this fraternity are very dynamic at thinking. The minute we start thinking that this is the environment we are targeting, I think we can come up with umpteen ideas to sort of engage and ensure that the audiences are with us. So yes, it will be very relevant even in our field.
Right. I want to come to you, Nanni. Since the pandemic started, we've all been witnessing virtual events. I mean, personally, like, we were used to live and suddenly now getting used to this. How do you see virtual events now, as an outsider, with an outside perspective?
Thanks,
In terms of the way they deliver experiences, the way they engage, the way they are important for the marketeers, for the sponsors. What is your view?
Okay, I first have to say that the virtual events over this period of time, I have to say the quality has improved phenomenally. It's also because a lot of new technology has come in and has taught us all a lot of things, and small tweaks have made all the difference, right? Because there is a virtual screen saturation, there's no doubt about it, for all of us as well who are doing the events, leave alone the people who are attending them. That's another level. But yes, the connectivity and everything else is what is bringing people back to continuing with the space of virtual events. However, coming to the point of, sorry, I lost your last question, the second part of the question.
Are they able to deliver more value in your view? Yeah.
So typically when we talk about more value, yes, they are able to deliver value. Why? Because exactly like Sushma had said, that through the virtual events, one, that you can hit the targeted audiences, which is very important. So if a company has a goal of promoting a particular product, you know exactly the kind of people you need to hit, and it actually reaches them. See, if you have an exposition in a stall, you don't know how many people are going to come. In this case, you're hitting those 50 people who definitely have interest in your product. So in that respect, we've noticed with the corporates that they have seen some good results. And then they have the data with them, exactly like we were talking about, that data has become a very significant part of this whole thing, because that is what helps you. It gives you a complete, it's like a treasure house. Then you can kind of go back to them again, and the connectivity becomes better, etc. Of course, then key thing, like, again, back to like exactly what Aarti said, is that you can't replace any of them. You cannot substitute one for the other. You can definitely, now that we have all grown with technology, I have to say we had all pushed it away for, like in all our spaces, in event spaces, at least I had pushed it away for till 2022 is when I'm actually going to get into learning more about technology. But we got thrown in, right? 2020 threw us all in. There was no option but to learn and absorb. And we all have grown with technology now, and I think we're doing fairly okay. We're doing fair. We are able to present personalized experiences. Experiences are only getting better. Look what Hoppier is doing. I mean, I'm sure everybody's following these guys. It's fantastic. Look at the photo booth company. I mean, they've minted money in this period. Why? Because of their creativity and innovations they brought around in a simple thing like a photo booth, with including AI and stuff. So it is all about what you're able to give. As an event person, if you ask me, because we believe in experiences have to be real life. So somewhere deep down, I don't get that satisfaction, but I'm happy if my client is happy. They're able to achieve their goals. I'm very happy. At the end of that's the bottom line. Client satisfaction is the bottom line for us.
Sushma, same question. When you go to a live event and you make that set, it takes you a couple of days sometimes. And then you see a virtual event and you have a huge building in front of it. Did it take you some time as a event person to kind of get convinced that, look, this is believable? Was there a moment of fantasy, like, what is happening around, is it real? Was it a cultural adjustment that needed for people who come from the live industry? That's my question.
Good question. And I think all my co-panelists will agree. We didn't have time to adjust. It was either, move with the times or just be left behind. So I think, I personally, I think we had only about 5-6 days to know that, hey, listen, we've got to upgrade, we've got to upskill, and we have to go out there and do whatever it takes to become quality oriented and international when it comes to hosting virtual events. That's number one, right? And we didn't, I would say we didn't have the leisure to chill out and relax and say, okay, chalo, abhi seekhte hain, correct? So that's number one. Was it difficult? I really don't think so. Because whether we're doing a live event or whether you're doing a virtual event, if you're doing it with the single word, the cornerstone of whatever we do is engagement, then anyone worth its salt in the experiential industry can come up with great solutions, great ideas, and great innovations to make even virtual events engaging. And, Roshan covered that. Yet it is all about sensory engagement. Number two is that's all about, there are so many platforms out there, and we are looking at it as a single dimension, right, of the virtual engagement. Well, it is a multi-dimensional engagement because there are various aspects. There are so many devices that one can utilize to have that virtual engagement enhanced, whether it's security devices so that you send OTP, whether it is a pre-event campaign that you can activate, whether it is a homegrown campaign where you have literally a kinesthetic engagement where people come home and give you stuff and so there's a lot you can do. But all that being said, I think one of the critical things we as event guys or experiential guys need to understand is something, and now I'm putting on my leadership coaching hat, okay, because I've been a trainer and a leadership coach, and having done that, there's something we have always operated on when we are creating engagement for our participants. And that is, everything that we do require to be created or constructed around what we call attention spans. Now, the attention span of a live event or of a participant in a live event is much longer and wider than that of somebody in a virtual event. And when the person is there on the virtual event, no matter what you do, you have to ensure that you clock in 8 minutes. That's it. That's the attention span. So one has to ensure that we clock in, ensuring that that 8 minutes is covered by something that we're doing in terms of layering, etc. Another thing we have to ensure that we do when we're planning a virtual event is know that who is our competition. Our competition is not another virtual event. Our competition is Netflix. Our competition is YouTube. Our competition is every other thing, OTT channels that are offering content. So how do we make our content engaging enough, what do you call pertinent enough and packaged enough to make a person hang on and view and do not leave that screen? I think when you've got that cap for a virtual event, then whether you're doing virtual or live events, you're sorted. Yeah. And the last that I really want to say is that it's brilliant. I don't think any of us are worried. Those of us who really want to innovate are very excited because super things on the horizon. Yeah. And I'm like sounding like a tech geek, but I am. And you've got VR, you've got opportunities to create avatars, for God's sake. Technology is somewhere else. And the reason I know all this is because I coach software companies, so I know what's happening. IoT has taken on another whole freaking level of expertise, right? So now when you've got avatars, can you imagine us as experiential specialists, what can we do? We can create magic online. And then dovetail it with some hybrid activity, dovetail it with some exciting VAK, visual, auditory and kinesthetic stimulus for those of our participants. So very long answer to you, Rohil. No, I'm very excited.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
I have something overlapping to share on Rohil's question and Sushma's answer. Very interesting, Sushma, that we are competing with Netflix and other OTT platforms. You know, in our industry, I mean, when I say our industry, one of the divisions at our wedding vertical, we used to always make these ostentatious over-the-top 3D designs and all of that, which eventually in physicality of the things, and finally, जब client बैठता था table पे, he would say कि नहीं budget नहीं है, So we had to sometimes, cut off certain designs, remove the intricacy of the design and all of that, and tone down, scale down, all of that we had to do by the time we would actually hit the dotting line and get the advance. And today I tell all my 3D design team, I said, all design karo. We can have 5 different backdrops, design as much as you want. It's all about, we say it in a lighter way, but actually it is true. You can have your backgrounds and very immersively, changing dynamically with all the animations thrown in. You can have different kinds of things happening, all as intricate as possible. And it's so funny, but at the same time, it's so true. And it does give you, so much like a canvas to play with. So yeah, I mean, we're looking at the pros and eliminating the cons of this whole changing dynamism with this.
You're being very optimistic and very excited, Singh. Chalo, now it is time.
Always.
Now, I want to go to Jaya and Meghana. This question, which I'm going to ask you, I've asked an event tech platforms before who were on my panel, but this is something which I really want to bounce off, which is that, when we see event tech platforms, we saw the presentation, everything, I mean, all of them, they are obsessed with live event. They are rooted in it. You have a stage, you have an exit and all, I mean, why this, first of all? It looks like a mirror of a live event. Do we need to move beyond it?
Meghana, would you like to go first?
Oh, no problem. So yes, I think we are moving away from it. Initially, all of those exits and the auditoriums, which look like physical event, was mostly to, the familiarity of people who have seen that. So to connect with the familiarity that was needed. But now that people are used to virtual events, used to seeing a lot of other features than just that, we are definitely moving away from it to keep that short. And in terms of, again, adding to what Sushma was telling, I really liked the point where you said, our competitors are Netflix. Definitely, yes. And also the content. So if I have to tell 3 main things for virtual event platforms is content, persona, the look and feel of it, and also the features. It is not about showing everything, forcing it upon the organizers or attendees. It's about the ability to pick and choose. You make your own kitty box of what you want for the event, and not all events need all features. So all of these things. So to add to what Aarti was telling, more than designs, like I totally understand in celebration how it is the flower decoration, the lighting. So you need to pull it down depending on the budget. But here it is more to do with the features, number of videos you can upload, number of brochures you can give, number of representatives you can add to man the booth. So I think that is where the comparison and the whole, competitive landscape is in terms of virtual events and physical events.
Yeah. So thank you, Meghana, for giving a good context setting to the entire question. So what I would like to add to this is how Sushma correctly said that, our fight is to create good content. At the end of the day, you are making people sit in front of the screens and you don't want another death by a webinar, right? So you and how you started telling, right? We never had the time to leisure it, ki ab kuch karte hain, sochte hain. It was a contingency plan. Pandemic happened and people shifted to virtual. So how we can adapt it in the best way? That was, keeping the best foot forward strategy. And that's how we started, okay, what is the best way to, replicate a physical event? And we went in the similar strategy of having a good lobby and entry and breakout room, this and that. And it just felt that virtual events were an extension of physical events. But what we have been seeing in past 1 year, and I'm even at SPALBA, that what we are trying to do. So our pitch from day one has been very clear that we're not creating a category of virtual and physical. We want to blur that line, even on our platform. The kind of technology that we have, the digital twins and everything, what we are trying to do, we are trying to make it as real as possible, even in terms of design. So now when you talk to client, everybody's like, yeah, enough of those breakout rooms. Tell us what we can do in terms of engaging my audience. So the question now is done with the infra part. Now everybody is like, okay, like how Sushma said, 8 minutes is the time. You play your game there. Otherwise, people will drop out of the webinar. You showed your attendance of whatever, 2,000 people. At the end of the day, it was just 50 views. It just feels so bad seeing all those things on YouTube and Facebook just coming there publicly. So now the game is more on the engagement side. And yes, live events will always be our fallback ground to have that learning, because like I said, it is all about engaging people, our real information, our real source of inspiration, that how people, what is that exact feel that people are missing physically versus virtually, and how we can create it. So this is the entire year, if hybrid is the future, the entire year of evolvement that will happen, and we'll keep learning on whatever we can, how make it feel as close to as live event. It will be the game going ahead.
Yeah, best part of virtual events is also that while audiences can feed in live questions, you can ask live on screen. And I'm getting a lot of questions. We have 10 minutes, so I'll pack in some. First to you, I'll go to Meghana first and then come to Aarti and Sushma and Nanni. There's a question that how do you ensure that consumer data is secured on a virtual platform?
Absolutely. I think it's a very good question, and a lot of responsibility lies in the hand of event tech platforms to secure this data. At Jaatre, we are EU GDPR compliant. We have to adhere to strict data protection policies. Otherwise, people are not going to trust us. And I mean, everybody is scared of data, right? So we have to guarantee how secure data is, and also following the guidelines and perishing the data once the event is over and not using it again is very, very critical and important. Also, using it only when with permission. Like organizers also have this data to use it for their further promotion with permission. And I think going further, even India, we will have data privacy, data protection policies, regulations that will come in and that will govern the whole event space.
Aarti, Sushma and Nanni are not the platform owners here. So when you use a virtual platform, Aarti, for example, do you feel limited in any way? Do you think it should have some more features? I mean, what would you like to? We have two big, leaders here from the event tech space. Do you think that there's something more they need to do in terms of creating that engagement? That tweaking around. What is your So your audio is muted.
These days, every brief that is given to us, is extended to us, is always layered with questions on engagement. Engagement. Whatever age group, whatever the type of the event, even when we did something for the RPG group, it was like hundreds of awards that they had to give over a day-long event, which had entertainment and this and that. Of course, we were like, we were sworn in, we had NDAs signed about all the data that, they parted with us, about all the email IDs and everything, so that security came in. But the point being that, answering your question, that is there more features? Yes, always. On multiple times in the last 1 year, we've used different APIs. We've bought APIs along with our digital partners, like we work with Streamy and other platforms. We were actually forced that we don't want to know anything else. We've seen your profile, your work is good, everything is good. We only want to have one meeting and multiple meetings only on the fact that how will you engage our audiences, and for which we actually invested into different APIs which leverage different features only for engagement. So yes, the more and more engagement features that we get, the more better for us to be able to value add to the entire event from a perspective of a planner to the corporate or even the family for that matter. So everything lies around engagement and interesting innovation. So those features will never, I think, become obsolete. I think these are the questions. Every meeting I'm only answering these questions and nothing else. All my team does. Only thing is, how will you engage? We've even gone to the extent of designing virtual cartwheels and those spin wheels and roulette and whatnot, which actually people can do from their own machines and wherever they are logging in from, for them to have as real as experience as possible. So there's loads available, and I think there is loads getting made as we speak. also, and it'll never sort of become enough. So there is a lot of scope for doing more on these platforms.
Yeah, so I'm totally in sync with what Aarti is saying, because engagement is a huge thing. But I have to say that, the event platform, see, like, again, similarly, like, we don't have an event platform of our own, but we've been using one for the longest time from the beginning. And, the kind of new stuff that they've been taking on. And and also if I end up seeing something which I've attended in some other webinar or seminar or conference or virtual event somewhere else, and I just tell them and they kind of absorb it. I'm zero when it comes to technology, I'll be very honest, but they are fantastic. But the biggest feature that we've always ensured is security. So that is one thing that we really make sure that the certificates are procured on time. They are shared with the client, so the client is also secure. That's the most important thing. Then comes all the data protection. All the data that has come to us, it's shared with the client and we delete it from the backend. The only thing we take access for is showcasing the designs. Because sometimes, some of the designs are so beautiful, but most of the time we end up replicating their own campuses on the screen. So they don't want us to kind of present their campuses to anybody else, fair enough. So we don't use those presentations for walkthroughs. But the only thing is that, yes, unless until we assure the client that, more than the client's security factor, we feel kind of safer that, we've kind of handed over everything to you. And God forbid, look at the kind of data breaches that are happening all over. And it's like shocking at times when you hear the kind of stuff that's going on. So we don't want to get involved in any of that because that's not our area of expertise. So we don't want to get involved with that. Like, this is it. This is your data. That's it. And of course, exactly like Aarti and Meghana both said, that most important thing is engagement, because you got to keep your audiences on the platform. That's it. So that is an area which it's an ongoing innovative process. And I think that's where, as event people, our creativity comes in, and our tech teams have been able to do it. I have to say that.
Sushma, your thoughts on this, the practical problems of using a virtual platform. Have you ever felt limited that, these features need to be there and this is not? What would you like to tell Jaya and Meghana here?
So, when there are practical, there are certain platforms that have abilities, have got various tools, various features that one can use. But there are some platforms that have limited aspects. Yet, I really feel there are no limitations, because if the platforms are limited, you can always embed. You can always embed a pigeonhole, you can always embed a Mentimeter. So it's not really a huge issue that way. What I would really suggest to Jaya and Meghana that I have here, I don't think it is so much about the tools and technology and features. I really think it is about how we can use those tools and features to create something new.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you a very simple example. As a simple event manager, been in the industry for 29 years, right? When we began in the event industry, I remember we used to have halogen lights. So in short, halogen. And then we used to actually write in proposals fairy lights, like it was something very brilliant. This is 29 years. Then came Parcans. So it was not so much about the Parcan as a light, but as much as about what kind of story can we create with the Parcan. Is where the vendor partner actually put heads together. And that's how both the agency and the vendor partner put their head together and say, hey, listen, this is where we can actually create something that is phenomenal, something that is memorable, something that is impactful. So besides, I really don't want to talk so much about the features, as much as we would really appreciate if you can come on board as partners and say, hey, listen, there is this chat feature available. Is it possible that we can add in emoticons in it? Or can we do chat huddles? I don't know. I'm not a tech developer yet. You're getting what I'm saying? So when we have a feature, how can we creatively use a feature? Something that we as experiential managers can really use some insight. Because I know some phenomenal things can happen on technology. Can we send those 3D goggles, Chota Chetan type of goggles everywhere? Can we create content? Because the hallmark of all this, actually, I would really say, is the programming. We're not running virtual events. We are creating a program. I think we have, as event managers, to have to really understand that And you as technology platform providers also have to understand of how can you make that program delightful, engaging and impactful. So that's what I'd like to add to it.
Great. That brings me to the final question. We just have 1 minute left, and this question is for Jaya. What have you done differently in the past to ensure higher sponsor ROI using SPALBA?
Oh, this is my favorite question, one of the favorite questions to answer. So actually, like how if I will have to tell what SPALBA exactly is, so we are a platform, and we don't abide ourselves by saying we are a virtual or in-person or hybrid. We are a platform that makes event planning easy. Today we are on this panel discussing about data and personalization. So I want to put this point forward. I started my career as an event planner. I've been there on all those big events, this and that, everything. So the pain of planning an event, be it live, be it virtual, it's the same. Event planning is the 6th most stressful job in the world as per the Forbes list, any of these lists. So SPALBA is made with that thought to make this entire process simple. And what we have done differently here is the 2 aspects. So like how we are talking about live events. So we say that, virtual event, that's the connect. But no, data is going to be a great tool for even physical events. So while we were building SPALBA, we did a lot of research. We have certain spatial tech engineers in our team. And you will be surprised to know, Florence Design School did this great study on how to design UX of a space. Like when you design a wedding or whatever, this one key thing that we miss, like Roshan was discussing about in the previous panel, is the attendee journey. So even data points in the physical events are that important that generally, like in a networking event, you can go very good with just a cocktail kind of a seating. You don't need a theater kind of a seating in a networking event. For most of your conferences, you should have your pre-function area flow from right to left, because 80% of the people are generally right-sided. So these are all things that are coming out of data. That is what the potential of data is. And that is what we are doing differently at SPALBA. We are changing the way how we plan events. Virtually, hybrid, in-person are just a format. And that's what SPALBA is taking care on all 3 aspects. Like how we are talking about engagement. I'll tell you, creativity and features and everything is also very subjective to client. There's this great company called as Whalebone. It is, I think, a US-based company. And then what they made in the last panel only, when I heard Roshan, he told about the Zoom feature that couldn't tap the voice of a classical singer, because Zoom has that filter that it can just grab a noise to a certain hertz. So this company creates the voice of your audience. So Nanni, how you were saying, if there are 10,000 people, Whalebone can create how those 10,000 people reacted in a sound format to your event. And that's a very big feature because it gives you the vibe, the crescendo of the event. Unfortunately, so many people don't click with that part. It is a company that is bought by one of the most successfully growing virtual event platform called as Hopin, which is a $5 billion company in just 2 years. But yeah, in India, everybody's like, kya karenge logo ki awaaz sun ke? So creativity virtually is also very challenging that way. So the idea is to understand the audience better, and it's all about the audience. Tech is just the enablement. Tech is an enabler. That is what I'll say, how I started this call. It is all about the audience. You need to map your audience. You need to map their journey. Virtually, physically, doesn't matter. And custom made a solution for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to continue, and I think it merits one more discussion that we will definitely do, I promise here. But thank you everyone for joining us. The next panelists are all set for the panel. I want to thank you for taking out time and sharing your views. And
thank you.
Yes, please. Sure. Please.
Words for all of us to think future of virtual and events. Think of scale. Think how to build more, think of possibilities, and let's think of growth. Because clients are using virtual events to sort of their advantage. We all must think of scalability and our growth within this. I think with that thought, we should...
Wonderful words and wonderful.
And on the last note, I would just like to add, I'm so happy to see this panel with all women. Like this is like just such a great panel to be on.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you, Rohil, for doing this.